Hey guys, and welcome to the video. So as you probably guessed by the title, I had this crazy idea to take an entire Terraria world and flip it upside down using tedit. This process does cause some weird things to happen with certain items, such as furniture and decorations, but for the most part, everything seems to function as normal. So what I want to do is see if I can complete an entire playthrough in one of these crazy upside down worlds. Starting off the playthrough, I spawned very close to what used to be the underworld, and as you may notice, some of the lava has bubble blocks over it. I did this because for the major bodies of liquid such as the oceans and the underworld lava, I wanted to preserve the shape of the world without having all the liquid flow away, so this was my solution. Getting right into it, I decided that I wanted to search these newly surfaced caves for valuable ore and treasures. The nice thing is that because the world is upside down, all of the best ores are already easily available to me on the surface. The only real thing keeping me from them is my slow mining speed. But after I collected a nice bit of resources, it occurred to me that I had an interesting problem. I didn't really have any way of getting wood, which means that I wouldn't be able to craft anything out of the ore that I was mining. So I decided to set off to find a chest cabin, because the walls of these structures are made out of wood, and they also sometimes generate pre-equipped with crafting stations that you can use. Unfortunately, the process was slow, and before long, night fell upon my world. Almost immediately after this happened, I was cornered by a couple of angry-looking zombies, and I was quickly sent back to spawn. After another few deaths, I decided to wait until morning to continue my search. And once it was time, I quickly set out again. This time, I was more fortunate, and before long, I found a cabin. Unfortunately, it did not contain any crafting stations, but what it did have was a decent supply of wood. So after tearing down every last plank I could get my hands on, I set up a quick crafting station to make myself a hook, as well as some much-needed tools and weapon upgrades. Feeling more confident with my new gear, I decided to start digging a elevator. Or, I guess a surface evader? Yeah, we'll go with that. The process was slow, but on the plus side, I didn't really have to deal with much lava, seeing as it was all on the surface. And after a while, I managed to reach the bottom, or the top, depending on how you look at it. Now, I didn't really need much from down here yet, but it did provide me with a better source of wood, though it was still pretty annoying to collect. Now that I had a better way of crafting torches, I decided to dive into some caves so I could upgrade my gear, and after a bit of time, I found myself some decent items and enough ore to craft myself some armor. Feeling more confident with my loadout, I decided to clear out an area above my spawn so that I could make an arena for some bosses, and once I was done, I decided to test it out on the Eye of Cthulhu. It was a weird experience fighting a boss in such a foreign environment, and I didn't think the Eye was happy about it either. But after a bit of time and a few weapon swaps, I managed to defeat the boss, though it was a bit of a close call. That was so close, what the heck, I could not hit the boss. Now that the Eye was defeated, I decided it was time to prepare for my fight with the Eater of Worlds. And I had an idea to check the dungeon to see if I would be able to snag any cool loot, since a part of it was exposed to the surface that normally wouldn't be. But after a quick search, I wasn't really able to find anything of use. So, moving on to plan B, I built up some quick NPC houses in order to get the demolitionist and bought a bunch of grenades and bombs. Then, I set off towards the surface to find a corruption, and once I found one, I began using the bombs to increase the amount of space I had to work with in order to fight the boss. Once I felt that I was ready, I blew up some orbs and spawned the boss. Unfortunately, the tunnel that I made turned out to not be as large as I thought, and I ended up dying to the worm. Before I could make preparations for my rematch, however, I was interrupted by a goblin invasion, which was honestly pretty good for me, because defeating it would allow me to find the goblin tinkerer and craft some new, more powerful accessories. Once they were defeated, I set off back towards the corruption and almost immediately found the bound tinkerer in one of my tunnels, so I quickly purchased some items that would help me in the future. With my new rocket boots, I returned to my now bigger arena and spawned the boss for a rematch. The worm was especially angry with me, and it seemed I could only attribute this behavior to the upside down world. But after a long period of throwing grenades and casting my Vilethorn, I was able to take the boss to an inevitable defeat. But being the coward that he was, instead of facing me, the boss instead turned and ran off, with only a fraction of its health remaining, bringing with it the treasure bag that contained my prize. Nevertheless, I decided to count this as a victory, as the world had still been freed from the wormy menace, so I continued on my quest. Now, I began to work on an arena at the entrance of the dungeon, which was much more challenging than normal, seeing as I was building in a void and I had a constant stream of cavern enemies attacking me. But after a frustrating few minutes, I was able to get the arena finished. While working on the Skeletron arena, I noticed a meteorite spawn, so once I was done, I set out to explore the top of the world to find it, and after a bit of searching, I managed to locate the meteorite near the left ocean lodged in the blocks above. Fortunately, the meteor head spawns were actually quite low, so I was able to mine out the ore without much resistance. resistance. Returning to the base, I crafted up a new set of armor and the ever-powerful space gun before heading to the dungeon. After making sure it was night, I talked to the old man and released his curse. Although I did have to deal with some annoying cavern enemies spawning during the fight, it actually turned out to be much easier than I thought it would be. My newly acquired space gun made quick works of Skeletron's hands, and although the head did put up a good fight with his cursed skulls, he was no match for my circular dodging. With the guardian of the dungeon no longer posing a threat, I decided to quickly take a peek inside. I initially had some good luck, securing myself a gold chest and the loot contained within. But after not long, my luck ran out and I was removed from the dungeon. Not wanting a repeat in the dungeon, I decided to instead focus my attention on the floating islands that were now sitting in the underworld. I wanted to get my hands on a lucky horseshoe and shiny red balloon to combine with my double jump before I took on the wall of flesh. Originally, I thought that I would need a gravitation potion like normal, but after evaluating the underworld, it became apparent to me that that would not be necessary. Using my newfound exploration technique, I quickly discovered multiple floating islands and got my hands on the items that I was after. Now, with my newfound loot, I decided it was time for the wall of flesh. Starting the fight, I heard the monster approaching, and before long, the hungry tentacles reached out at me, but I still couldn't quite see the boss, so I began firing wildly to try and land a few stray hits on the eye. Before long, I was able to clear out some of the hungries, and the beast was revealed. With the target in sight, I quickly started firing on the eye, and to be honest, the upside down world did not bode well for the fleshy wall, as I was able to easily dodge his attacks and bring the boss down to low HP. Realizing that he was in danger, the boss let out a screech and put everything it had into one final assault, but it was no use. I was able to counter his charge and bring down the wall. As the dust cleared, I realized that the loot would actually be pretty hard to get, so I made my way over to the nearest floating island to assist in my ascent to the surface. Then, using my grappling hook, I was able to make my way over to the loot. After consuming the demon heart and equipping my newly obtained emblem, I returned to my base in victory. But, as I looked around, I quickly realized that my adventure had just begun. If you guys enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to be notified when I upload part 2. And if you're interested in seeing live gameplay, I will be doing a 24-hour live stream this Saturday the 19th. I will have a link to my Twitch in the description of the video. But with that out of the way, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.